The title of this video should not surprise any sim racer, like at all. This is something we all know that exists and we just really don't like talking about because it's awkward and weird and shitty, and we want to pretend that we're somehow above World of Warcraft nerds, but we're not. Anyways, why are we going down this rabbit hole? Well, there was a video that went viral in the iRacing community today of a top split race at Atlanta Motor Speedway where voice chat just became a mess. And if you're not new to iRacing, you know this is a thing. Some of the higher ranked lobbies, people are just not nice to each other in them. Long story short, someone caught all of this on tape. Now, I could sit down and give you guys like a play-by-play of who is involved and all that bullshit. I'm actually not going to. These kind of incidents are bigger than any individual person involved in them. So I would rather explore the reason they're happening. And they're happening because people are getting addicted to racing sims the same way people once got addicted to World of Warcraft or Counter-Strike. This, in my opinion, is the core problem fueling all this stuff. Anything else is a red herring. Sim racers are turning into WoW nerds. Now, speaking anecdotally here, I first started to notice that sim racing addiction was a thing at the start of last decade when I was first getting into the hobby as a teenager. Once I got my I rating high enough, people would be like, hey, do you want to come hang out in our TeamSpeak server and just like shoot the shit? And I'd be like, okay, that sounds fun. And you'd end up discovering that these guys literally just raced and tested all day and all night. Like, they never stopped. And this was kind of ditto with other racing games I was playing at the time, too. You know, you'd end up meeting people through the community, and, like, it is literally all they did. Now, as a teenager, this was admittedly pretty sweet. You have tons of free time, you're working a part-time job, you have tons of disposable income, so you can just buy whatever game or DLC that comes out. And at any given time, you can pop online and hit up your gaming buds and be like, hey, do you want to turn laps in this? And the answer is always yes. That was a lot of fun. I did notice, though, that, like, as I was starting to hit really basic life milestones, like, oh, wow, I've been at the same full-time job for 2 years, or, oh, this is the 5th used vehicle I've owned. Not a lot of guys I knew through sim racing were hitting those milestones or anywhere close. Like, I'll put this to you really bluntly. I knew a lot of people through sim racing across like multiple games who just didn't have a job or lived in the middle of nowhere and getting a job was just not feasible. They were still grinding away either iRacing or other racing sims more than when I'd first met them. I mean, you guys know that iRacing has a detailed stats tracking page and Steam tracks the amount of hours you play in games like AC or F1. There was no way of hiding this stuff. This is all these guys were doing. And these kind of crazy gaming hours would predictably come with the mood swings associated with them. I've been in a lot of voice chats over the years where you can clearly tell that someone is rattled because the race is not going their way, and it's like borderline uncomfortable. You can tell the race means more to them than it does to you. So when I see stories like this go viral in the iRacing community, I'm really not surprised, and neither should you guys be. There's a pretty high concentration of people like this in sim racing, and these outbursts essentially happen because they're struggling with addiction. You have these guys essentially locked into like a depressive spiral, binging on sim racing and unable to pull themselves away for it or put things into any perspective because it's literally all they do. Which is more or less the same trajectory that games like World of Warcraft followed. It's the same basic premise. People just got so sucked into it that that's literally all they cared about. In fact, the guy at the top of the sim racing food chain was basically in the same spot as these people at one point. There's an interview Jimmy Broadbent did with Dextero Online where he basically admits that when he got started as a content creator, his life was more or less destroyed and he was just living in a shed in his parents' backyard binging on sim racing and streaming for like 4 or 5 people. Now, Jimmy worked extremely hard to get to where he's at, and now he's extremely accomplished and is making good money off this stuff. But not everyone can be Jimmy Broadbent. There's a lot of people in this situation who are still in this situation. So the question is then, why does this come out so frequently, and why is iRacing's top split, or at least the upper ranks of iRacing, so notorious for these kind of outbursts? And now you have a reason to hate the esports scene. The esports scene in sim racing as a whole, not just iRacing, so iRacing, please don't DMCA this video or threaten me with a lawsuit, provides what is essentially justification for video game addiction. If they just drive a couple more laps and improve their time by a couple more tenths, they have a shot at thousands of dollars and can therefore justify the hours and the months and the years spent binging on sim racing. Now, why is this a problem? Racing is inherently a loser machine. Even the best esports driver, or even real life driver, is a couple of wrecks or bad pit stops away from not making the show. And everybody knows that. That's just a fact of racing. Now, against the backdrop of not necessarily doing a whole lot else with their lives, you can see why one little wreck and one little race causes them to freak the fuck out. In their depressive, addicted state, they don't have anything else going for them. They need to win that race.